like anytime I'm like, I build a list of movies I want to see, Darkman is always on the list. And I've just somehow never gotten to it. And finally I watched it. And like from frame one, it's like, oh yeah, this is absolutely, as soon as they take off the guy's like prosthetic leg and there's a gun in it, I'm like, oh sure, yeah.
In 2017, Universal Studios announced the birth of a new shared universe of monster movies, bringing their classic horror icons into the contemporary franchise film landscape. But after the critical and financial failure of its first installment, the project was indefinitely abandoned. Now, in 2024, the powers that be have called upon one pulp horror devotee and one snarky film critic to unearth the concept. I'm Dylan Roth.
And I'm Dalton DeShane.
Are you afraid of the dark universe?
Welcome to Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe, the podcast where we attempt to resurrect Universal Studios' failed cinematic universe of monster movies, one pitch at a time. I am your terribly, horribly burned host, Dylan Roth.
And I am your hoping this gets me the Spider-Man gig in about 10 years' time host, Dalton DeShane.
And together, we have been building out the Dark Universe into an ongoing narrative to rival the MCU. And I think this actually, it's not the first time we've had somebody on the show who has contributed to the actual Marvel Comics universe.
Yes.
This is an exciting guest.
It would make sense that the Dark Universe would poach Marvel talent, right?
Yes, absolutely.
We are building the cinematic universe of our dreams. And I think we got to start switching to surpass. We have surpassed the Marvel universe. Well,
I think we're currently doing... I mean, box office returns on Deadpool and Wolverine notwithstanding, I think in terms of our hit rate for the past 2 years, I think we're doing as good or better.
This is from, of course, the people who wrote those
audience.
movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of the 1,500 to 2,000 people who listen to our podcast, we have way more percentage of satisfied customers. In between our own canonical installments, however, we've been inviting our favorite storytellers into our office to plumb the depths of the Universal Pictures catalog for other properties to potentially remake and fold into our own continuity. Our guest this week is a prolific writer who has contributed to major superhero comics like Loki, Harley Quinn, Black and White and Red, and Amazing Spider-Man, television shows such as Clone High and Late Night with Stephen Colbert, for which he was nominated for an Emmy. He has also written for the Emmys. He is a founding editor of Clickhole, the author of picture books Princess Dinosaur and Santa's Husband with illustrator Ashley Quach, and the co-creator of the comics series The Doorman. Well, that's all the time we have for today. We'll see you next time. No, please welcome to the Dark Universe, Daniel Kibblesmith.
Woo! That's me for myself.
Yes,
I assume that the people at home are also going woo.
Yeah, for sure.
F's in the chat. If you're whatever chat you're in, whether it is related to our podcast or not, please put an F there and then explain why to your friends and family. That's because you were wooing for Daniel Kibblesmith.
At all, but I'll take it because it sounds like a version of enthusiasm. just as an organism that runs on praise, I'm very happy to have anybody.
You've come to the right place, Daniel.
Yes, I mean all podcasts are that. That's why we all do them. Even though at least no one on this podcast right now is getting paid for this. I can tell you that much.
No, nor I. This is a classic labor of love.
Yes.
I love being described as prolific because this is the only thing I did today. And that makes me feel like that was an acceptable decision from a professional standpoint.
Yours may be the longest intro we've ever written for the show. You have accomplished a great deal in your creative career. So...
Well, I truly appreciate that. I think that it's also a symptom of I do a lot of little stuff, mm-hmm. I do a lot of little to medium stuff, and I try things and I'm spread relatively thin. I think if I was the host of a late night talk show, I'd have a shorter bio, but a much nicer house, that kind of thing.
And no time to be on this show.
No, absolutely not. I would not give you guys a second.
Not the time of day.
Who will be the first late night talk show host to be a guest on our show? Chris Gethard probably is maybe the most realistic get.
Gethard seems doable. I don't think Seth Meyers is out of the question. He loves this
like
kind of thing.
Yeah, he would be at least interested in the premise. It might be tough to nail him down.
We'll have our people tweet his people, as we do.
Of course, Conan is a fellow podcaster. We're basically peers in the industry.
Sure. But also competition.
True,
So,
it's true. He might crush us. Our Hot Ones episode wasn't nearly as good. Daniel, you have come here to us. You have you selected right away when we invited you onto the show. You knew almost immediately what movie you wanted to talk about on the show. You were very excited about it. Would you like to introduce our listeners to the subject of today's episode?
Yes, the latest entrance to the Dark Universe is a reboot of Darkman, directed originally by Sam Raimi. I want to say 1990. I'm not actually sure about the year. And for me, a formative text. One of my favorite films. I've seen it many times, mostly on VHS, and a very important movie to me, and I think a cornerstone to how I approach genre and tone in storytelling.
It's amazing. I was really shocked that no one had picked this yet, because it is a Universal picture, first of all. It's also a Universal Monsters film, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
I think Darkman seems like the first sincere attempt at adding to the Universal Monsters canon since like Creature from the Black Lagoon. Like, I know that there was this sort of wave of new Universal horror with The Thing and the American Werewolf in London, but that was, I feel like, had a different sort of goal. This was like, I am making a pulp horror monster for the 90s.
Yes. And also, I do think that this may be because it seems like most of our guests, when we tell them about our show, just Wikipedia Universal films and go in chronological order until they see one they like.
Right. That's how we got episodes based on Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yeah, it depends on which way you go.
And
right.
Nobody's getting to 1990, though. They're either starting at the top and getting to like 2003, or they're starting at the bottom and getting to The Thing That Couldn't Die. You know, like
right.
But nobody's hit but because I assume you're a fan of this movie, you were just ready to go with it.
I knew that it sort of counted. I didn't know if it counted for you guys, but I knew that it was sort of seen as a movie that you could make the argument that it is part of the canon of what we think of as, the Universal Monsters pantheon. And I think in a post MCU world, a really interesting bridge, because it's also the rare original superhero movie that succeeds and becomes a brand name.
I mean, it really is kind of the ultimate Dark Universe eligible film, because it is both a Universal monster movie and a superhero movie in a blender, which is what Universal wanted the Dark Universe to be, was the superhero franchise of monsters.
This is, really trying to do the sort of thing that we've kind of, even though we swore we weren't going to do, ended up kind of doing in our own Dark Universe.
Right.
Yeah, so we're excited to hear what you have in store for us, but I suppose there might be some folks out there in the podosphere who have not seen 1990's Darkman. So we want to take a second to get the listening audience acquainted, or reacquainted, as maybe they haven't seen it recently, with this video store rental classic.
I mean, honestly, though, this was, and I want to thank you, Daniel, for picking this one. This was my first time seeing it, which is crazy for me.
Dalton is such a Dalton movie.
Absolutely.
This is like how I hadn't seen the Before trilogy, the fact that you haven't seen Darkman.
And I've always known that. Like, I've been a Raimi fan like since junior high when I saw Evil Dead, and I've seen most of his films. And from jump, I think I first heard about Darkman because I had the Danny Elfman CD. Like, there was like a double CD. Music for a
Darkened Theater.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it had Darkman on there. And I looked it up and I was like, oh my God, it's Raimi and Danny Elfman. This is perfect for me. I need to see this movie. And that was probably in like junior year of high school. And I've just put it off. It's always just been like, oh, I still need to see that. It's been like on my like letterbox to watch. It's been in notes on my, like, anytime I'm like, I build a list of movies I want to see, Darkman is always on the list. And I've just somehow never gotten to it. And finally I watched it, and like from frame one, it's like, oh yeah, this is absolutely, as soon as they take off the guy's like prosthetic leg and there's a gun in it, I'm like, oh sure, yeah.
Yeah, you know pretty quick if this is for you.
Yeah.
You know? It's very, I don't want to say it's tonally consistent, but it's tonally specific.
Yes.
And either you're into it right away or you're not. I mean, we'll get into it, but it opens not with any of our characters really, but with a gangster who we only see in the opening scene, somebody who's there to in wrestling terms get somebody else over, and it's very much like it's of that kind of, you know, diesel punk, like post Burton Batman,
yes,
you know, pulp / radio hero wave. Where in for whatever reason, instead of Batman leading to more superhero films, it led to this kind of other nostalgia project where we had The Rocketeer and The Phantom and, you know, all you know, The Shadow, obviously, which is woven into the story of this film. But it opens with like basically like Dick Tracy bad guys, you know, like
but
sort of like
very...
a weird kind of like 90s version of the Warriors, sort of like multicultural gangsters.
Yes, I was thinking about this very 90s phenomenon of these ethnically diverse street gangs that is just like, we're believing in a better world, right? The Cold War is over, you know, America has won, and now it's time to tackle the problems here at home. Like, desegregating crime is the thing that we've got to do.
And it's a lot of like 30-something like working guys.
Yeah.
You know?
I just watched also for the first time Assault on Precinct 13, Carpenter's
magnificent.
One. And that's another one where it's like the most culturally diverse gang, just like no idea what they're a gang for. Like there's never any explanation, but it's like, wow, this is really the melting pot, you know, here in apparently the Midwest suburbs, it seems like, you know.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yes.
It's beautiful. I think Darkman I think is sort of it's one of those classic like every cities, but it's also very much downtown LA.
Yeah. But yeah, the stamp of even I think in that opening scene of Burton's Batman, of like the crime family being the comic book bad guy, sort of, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but I've had a long week, which is another thing I was going to get to, which is that when we go through the recap, I'm going to need both of your help refreshing me on like the last 15 minutes, because Dylan knows last weekend I spent 18 hours filming a music video.
It was extremely cool. But it was also
very cool.
Much cooler for me because I was a PA, and so I was running around, but only for about 12 hours, whereas you were on set for 18 plus 4 the previous night.
I caught up on sleep last night, but clearly not all the way there yet. And so as much as I was loving this movie, it was that involuntary thing of like, I have to keep my eyes open. I have to keep my eyes open. So a refresher on the end will be good for me as well as the listening audience. But yeah, anyway, the Batman
we
feel.
We start out with, we interrupt the middle of a crime war led by 2 gangs who are commanded by Star Trek Next Generation guest stars, and including one who is the main antagonist of arguably the most problematic episode in all of Star Trek. I'm talking about.
You get 20 more seconds about Star Trek.
Jesse
You better
Lawrence
remember
Ferguson,
the name.
who plays Lutan in Code of Honor,
Okay.
the first season episode, which is completely on the page, totally fine, and then because of casting choices, like incredibly racist.
Timer's over. No more.
Timer's up. And so we established that this is a world of pop crime, you might say, in Grant Morrison's terms. But we're concerned with from there is we're going to meet our hero, who is Dr. Peyton Westlake, played by Liam Neeson. This is pre-Schindler's List Liam Neeson, who would do roles like this. And of course, he'd do roles like this later. But he is a brilliant scientist who's developing a liquid skin, basically a 3D printed artificial skin that can replace, work as a graft, replace burns or other injuries.
Or to make Mission Impossible masks.
Which
which comes up quite a bit in this film.
Yes,
I believe they're working on a nose in the first example.
Yes.
They have a nose in a petri dish, and it's very compelling imagery.
and then it melts, and like it's
Well,
funny
'cause the
like,
skin only lasts for 99 minutes in the light.
it's funny that like it really for the first like 15 or 20 minutes just kind of teases the Raimi-isms. Like it doesn't until the actual the part where the building explodes and his body goes flying into the
out,
air.
yes.
Like Raimi shows admirable restraint for the first like 15 or 20, and you get like these things like the nose melting, just like these kind of gnarly, or the thing with the gun being hidden in someone's prosthetic leg that are these fun, campy sort of moments. And then as soon as Liam Neeson becomes Darkman, it's just like full tilt. Raimi.
You're off to the races. Yeah. I mean, for anyone who hasn't seen this film, what you are in for is like wall-to-wall bits. Like, it really seems like he had a notebook full of like gag ideas and constructed a superhero movie around them so that he could get in every possible crazy gag that he could think of.
If you're a Raimi fan, I would say it's like the exact center between Spider-Man and Army of Darkness.
Yeah, it occupies a really interesting place in his filmography as sort of like a halfway point to what becomes the sort of platonic ideal of a superhero movie.
Yeah.
An essential missing link, basically, in a lot of people's genre filmographies. But I also like, this is a detail we can get into a little bit more later, that maybe it has to do with trying to make this movie and these ideas fit into some sort of acceptable Hollywood studio mold. Raimi creates a textual reason why the lead character is like a crazy comic book man.
Which is the same justification from The Invisible Man.
Yeah.
Like from the classic Universal, even from the H.G. Wells story Invisible Man, it's like this treatment, which in this case is to help him with his burns, which I know I'm jumping ahead.
Yes.
But it's like this treatment gradually drives you insane. It makes you more prone to outbursts and anger and stuff, which is like beat for beat exactly from The Invisible Man.
Gives him a slightly different sort of like dissociative disorder out of in something that makes kind of logical sense. In Invisible Man, it's like, oh, you're losing your ability to relate to yourself, let alone other people. And for Darkman, it is you're no longer feeling pain and your brain doesn't know what to do with this lack of input. So it's filling it in with noise, basically, emotional noise, irrational noise in your brain. And it makes it very difficult to regulate. And Liam Neeson has a lot of fun with it.
Liam Neeson, this is, I mean, I know that this phrase is falling out of favor, but it truly is a everyone understood the assignment movie.
Yes.
The command, and we should say the love interest, Julie, is Frances McDormand, who is sort of playing like a classic sort of damsel, like a noirish leading lady ingenue type. And
you know who the studio wanted for that character?
No, I don't.
Julia Roberts.
Yeah, I mean, it would have worked because she is essentially just playing a romantic lead. We think of Frances McDormand now as being like a very quirky and sort of challenging role-driven actor and producer. But my understanding of this, just from other podcasts and reading about it, is that she wanted to kind of just take a crack at being like a Hollywood lady.
Yeah.
See what that felt like.
And she's unfortunately not given like too much to do. It really is Liam Neeson's movie, and it has that very much like 90s thing of like she's sort of there to drive Liam Neeson's plot forward.
Right.
But she's great in it. Like she like you said, she knows what movie she's in and she's playing it
they both
perfectly.
do.
Yeah.
So Liam Neeson's character, Peyton Westlake, and Frances McDormand's character, Julie Hastings, they are in a serious relationship. Peyton kind of just frantically walking down the street asks her to marry him. She's on the fence about it. She's a career woman, and I guess we're to assume that these are incompatible goals. And again, it's the 90s. We still haven't really figured it out. Yes.
Yeah.
And that very night, turns out Julie has gotten her hands on a document at her job that is potentially damning for her company. The document has a delicious name, the Belisario Memorandum, and characters will find excuses to say it whenever possible. And why wouldn't you? Frankly, I'm looking for excuses to say it.
It's very similar to what I put in our Love Never Dies pitch, the Black Bellarmine.
Black Bellarmine. Yes.
Yeah.
Today's Black Bellarmine is the Belisario Memorandum. And the Belisario Memorandum is basically evidence of corporate and government corruption tying her employer, Louis Strack, from Strack Industries, not to be confused with that other one, played by Colin Friels, and the wicked, well-known crime boss, Robert G. Durant, played by two-time Star Trek guest star Larry Drake. Now, for her own safety, basically, she has left this damning document in an undisclosed location so that her boss can't pull a Max Schreck on her or whatever. Although that hasn't happened yet. This is only 1990. Interesting parallels.
Wait, by undisclosed location, you mean her apartment?
Well, no, she left it in her boyfriend's apartment.
Oh, do they not live together?
They don't live together, I don't think.
Okay.
So they come looking for it at the laboratory where Peyton is working on the synthetic skin.
So Robert Durant, the wicked mobster who collects human fingers,
Great bit.
Really
Great
good
bit.
bit. He uses a cigar
cigar
cutter to remove the
thing.
fingers of his victims. He and his gang, they find the document at the lab where Peyton works. They murder Peyton's buddy and lab assistant, and they think they murder Peyton when they burn his hands with electricity, drown him.
So cool. The
in the
stop
clayface
motion,
shit.
The stop motion of his hands like burning and like ripping apart is like, it's just that little peak of Evil Dead, kind of effects in there.
Exactly. Sort of like, in a pre-IMDb era, just signaling to the audience like, hey, I'm that guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they blow up the lab. Miraculously, Peyton
he shoots into the air. Miraculously, he flies about 200 feet in the air, like a fucking, like the coyote. Or something.
There is a little bit of Chuck Jones logic to this film. And I think the idea is that we've already been acclimatized to the idea this is a slightly cartoon world, right? And everything gets more cartoony, as you said, as soon as he becomes Darkman, which is essentially this exact moment. He lands in the nearby bay, is presumed dead. They have a funeral for him. Julie's very upset. But however, he's been fished out of the lake by the most bizarre medical facility in a logic sense. Here's what this facility does.
It's not really explained beyond being like the hospital, but the details are very unique.
They fish out an unidentified man who they assume is unhoused and has no ID. He's got horrible burns over his face and hands. He's on the brink of death. And what they decide to do is put him in one of those big wheels they use to make the hosts in Westworld, and administer a treatment that eliminates his capacity to feel pain at the cost of eventually his sanity. Yeah. They are doing this evidently for free as an experiment on a homeless guy.
It is framed somewhat as charity, but also as like very much just like open experimentation on the homeless.
Yeah, they're like, this is very new, but without this, like he would spend his days in constant agony. It's the only thing we can do. Now, did I miss or do they never explain why he's spinning? That's just a fun
there's
little
no reason why
they don't explain why he and some of the other patients in the background are shown to be on these big rotating metal hoops.
Yes.
But the doctor played by Jenny Agutter.
Yep.
Of Logan's Run and later Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
American Werewolf in London. She's also genre royalty.
She's uncredited here. She's just playing a role of a masked up doctor. John Landis is also one of those guys. Has no lines.
Did not catch that.
Yep.
Speaking of werewolf.
Yes. And
now I don't know if it's believable that guy would experiment on a homeless person. I don't know. He just seems like a good guy.
Yeah, he seems like a good egg. Yeah.
Very responsible fellow.
Reckless.
But in as much time as it takes for Jenny Agutter to explain what has been done to him, he escapes off into the city, sees what's happened to him, As we mentioned, he's now emotionally cranked up. It's kind of like in that Angel episode where he becomes a Muppet and they have to explain that he now has the emotional reactions of a puppet his size. That's what's happening.
Is that a real Angel episode?
Yeah, it's pretty
buddy,
fun.
it's the Angel episode.
Yeah.
There's an Angel episode where he becomes a Muppet?
Yeah, season 5, the best season.
I should have stuck with Angel. God damn.
And before we get too far away from it, something else that Jenny Agutter just kind of throws out there in one of my favorite lines in the movie, she explains that they've severed his pain receptors, and that's why his brain is overloading with emotion because it's craving the stimuli elsewhere. She also just kind of tosses out that he has, quote, augmented strength.
Yes.
Which means
Sure.
which means that this hospital has essentially invented superheroes, but they're not really thinking about it in any context other than as a side effect of burn ward treatment.
Which I read that as like, I feel like, I don't know if this was in the recent Wolverine run. It's probably been something that's been established many times over the years, but they say that because his body can regenerate, he can, run faster or whatever, because if he damages his muscles, they just repair themselves. And it seemed like that was sort of the justification, is because he can't feel pain, he can push his body farther than it would normally allow him to, because he doesn't have like these sensations telling him to stop. I don't know if that's, was I just reading into that, but
that's certainly a very logical interpretation. But all the text provides is, he has augmented strength.
Yeah, he's
just stronger than a regular person now.
We're creating super strong vagrants. We're building an army
who are also going crazy.
Yes, I hope that's covered in Darkman 2, where he has to fight the army of. They should all team up.
The only thing that I know about Darkman 2, I know 2 things about it. I know that Arnold Vosloo takes over the role.
Really?
Yes.
Imhotep himself?
Imhotep himself takes over the role
and
of Darkman.
He plays him with a British accent, I think, as well, which Liam Neeson doesn't have. Liam Neeson is American in this film. I believe that in the sequels, he just becomes British for some reason.
Have you seen the sequels, Daniel?
I've seen both of them. Okay. I think we're about to say how good the title of number 3 is.
Actually, I don't remember the name of number 3. I haven't seen it. I was just going to talk about how the number 2 is The Return of Durant, which I don't think thrilled anyone.
Not a terrible title.
Yeah.
But if you're familiar with Durant, I guess. But no, Darkman 3 is called Darkman 3 Die, Darkman Die.
Oh, that is very good.
That is good.
Yeah.
Which I think is, for a film that is probably extremely underseen, maybe like an overrepresented great title.
Yes.
The Darkman, The.
Return of Durant really highlighting why it's so important to give your comic book villains comic book names.
Yeah. Robert G. Durant. Anyway.
Yeah, he hits it pretty hard.
Yes.
We know who Durant is by the end of this movie.
Enunciates. Mm-hmm. He's not even the A villain, though. We'll get to it. So Peyton tries to rebuild his lab in a spooky abandoned warehouse. And this is sort of the thing that really makes it feel very much like a Universal Monster movie, that he is both the mad scientist and the monster. Mm-hmm. Something we know a little something about.
That's right. Here on the Dark Universe.
And
R.I.P. to a real one.
Yep.
Victor Frankenstein.
So he's trying to basically recreate his work, perfect his synthetic skin, replace his face and hands. But he still has this obstacle where if his skin is exposed to light for 99 minutes, it dissolves in grisly fashion. So while he's working on copy and pasting part of his face over the other part of the image of his face, a process that's supposed to take something like 20 days.
571 hours, I think they say.
Yes.
Computers were just not, it's 1990.
He, in the meantime, apparently does not have to use all that much processing power to create lifelike masks of all the goons who were responsible for killing him so that he can exact revenge on Robert G. Durant for everything that he did.
It can do the Mission Impossible masks almost instantaneously, but using the Photoshop clone tool is a month-long process.
I know this was around the same time the net came out, right? People aren't clear on how no one has the personal experience to know why this is ridiculous.
Right. We know that there's wireframes. We know that when you look at a picture in a computer, it's made out of green intersecting lines. We know that. But the devices, the machinery in this movie and the aesthetic of kind of the old technology, it really is like Raimi and co. are trying to figure out what Victor Frankenstein's lab would look like in 1990. And there's all these like sort of unnecessary borderline Rube Goldberg steps to the creation of all of the body parts. It's so much fun to watch.
Well, and it is really like, it feels kind of like a cross between Frankenstein's laboratory and the Batcave. Because like it has these sort of like imposing like platforms that he walks out on, like and catwalks and like
this movie is drowning in catwalks, scaffolding, girders. Man, you like watching people walk on high metal? You are going to have a great time.
It's got like the open space of the Batcave and sort of the levels and stuff, but with the machinery and stuff of Frankenstein's lab. And so it really is like every level of this is just the fusion of comic book and Universal monsters come to life, which is
I also, the set design is also fun in that it gives you a lot of opportunities for, because it's on this sort of split level thing, then you get to shoot from below, you get to really play with the space, you get to play with all of these sort of dangling chains and equipment in the foreground and the background. It gives the place really good scale. It's a great mad scientist lab.
Well, and if you're doing production design on a Sam Raimi joint, you got to know, like, I got to give this little freak as many weird places to put the camera as possible.
Yeah.
Like he's not doing classic setups. He's going to find some weird little angle or corner to shove that camera, and that's what he's using.
Yeah, there's a cat in the lab as well. I think there might even be like some cat POV at some point, which is very Raimi.
Yeah.
So he's pulling some high stakes pranks on the gangsters, assuming their identities, fucking up money handoffs, framing them for betrayal, and getting Robert G. Durant arrested for just holding up a convenience store. I think that's a pretty good bit.
It's so good. I mean, his superpower is essentially bits. Like Darkman is such an interesting creation because he does have these sort of like, kind of like a kitchen sink power set of just stuff that they were interested in or stuff that makes the story work. Like, he's stronger than he should be, or he can't feel pain. Like, some of it is thematically resonant. I think some of it is like plot convenience, but his real superpower is doing bits.
Yeah.
Like, he could kill all these people in their sleep if he wanted to, but instead he is just Kevin McAllister out there, like putting on disguises and like setting them up for pratfalls and stuff.
The way he robs the convenience store and then like looks in the camera and is like, yes, it's me, Robert G. Durant.
It's like, so good.
Okay, so has Sideshow Bob done his heel turn yet on The Simpsons? Because it's almost the same bit, right?
I think around the same time. Yeah, I think 1990 is certainly like post the first evil Sideshow Bob. But
die, Bartman, die.
In general, this is a very like Looney Tunes, movie. This is Raimi sort of like, if I do Batman with less money, will you let me make it be extremely crazy?
And while we're on Batman again, I was thinking about this earlier. I really love the Danny Elfman score on this, but it is crazy that this is just like 1 year after Batman. And he is using some of the same motifs.
Yeah.
He's still doing the trumpet like ba 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 ba, and like a little flute going like a lot. The melodies aren't the same, but his textures are all very, very Batman.
Yeah, I'm a big Elfman guy, and it's not
Same.
It's not my favorite. I think it kind of disappears a little under the movie, and Batman is so iconic.
Yes.
But it is very solid. It's doing everything that gets me excited in a movie theater.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's one that has become, legendary the way that so many of his scores have.
It's also, I think it works with the film because, like, it would have been really easy for him to be on his Beetlejuice shit with this score because of how cartoony the film is. But instead, he's on his gravitas shit, where like the score is taking the movie seriously. Like, I don't think the score is ever playing a joke. It is absolutely. And I know he's said that like after Batman, a lot of people wanted like that sound from him. And so part of it might have been studio pressure or something.
I think there's a possibility that he was given his own music as temp tracks for this. I think that would probably explain a lot of the parallels. Like this, maybe like, okay, we're gonna cut this to a piece of score from Batman '89, and then you're gonna redo it.
That would make sense.
It also is very, I think, another person who understood the assignment, though, because when Gravitas is right on the money, like he is a very, sorrowful character who's wearing a fedora and clearly evoking not just the Invisible Man, but the Phantom of the Opera. And there's a lot of organ in the score, which feels very purposeful and very much hearkening to the Universal Monsters days.
He really kind of is all the Universal monsters in one, right? Like on the one hand, you've got we've talked about the Frankenstein aspect. We've talked about the Invisible Man aspect, the Phantom of the Opera aspect, in that his face is like horribly disfigured. He's afraid to like show it to Frances McDormand. There's the Wolfman aspect of like there's a clock on him because the masks like expire after, and he can only use them best at night. Like there is sort of a ticking clock on everything.
He even gets thrown in the water. He even gets to be underwater for a little while.
He gets to be a water creature, yeah.
Back to the Wolfman thing, there's this interesting thing where we have this subplot where he's using his temporary, his short-term liquid skin to reconnect with Julie and to try and rekindle their romance. But he hasn't told her the truth because he's afraid of being seen as a freak. But also because his emotional regulation is so messed up that he has this very, very dangerous hot temper that scares him and naturally scares people when they see it. And so I think there's also that sort of Wolfman type thing of there's a monster in you fighting to get out. And so it's not safe for anyone to be around you.
He has a bad case of what my wife calls movie crazy, which is when you're crazy in a sort of ill-defined way that makes the plot move forward.
Which is on full display in an incredible sequence at the carnival.
Yes!
We love the carnival scene.
God, it's so good. Which draws sort of the freak show parallel that we were just getting at a little bit. And also has Liam Neeson freak the fuck out at a carnival game guy who's, trying not to give him the stuffed animal he's won. And man, the visual stuff that Raimi does when he like breaks down is just... I don't even know how to describe it. Just please watch the movie.
It's really fantastic. And it's a lot of like pre-CGI, like optical transitions in this movie. There's a lot of like old-fashioned Hollywood tricks in this movie where the background will dissolve or shatter. And, things will become sort of two-dimensional and flat. And it's all very expressionistic. It's ambitious stuff.
It's that stuff that like he gestured to in the slightest bit in the new Doctor Strange, and all the Marvel fans would like post those clips and be like, "Oh, who is this guy ruining the Marvel universe?" And you'd be like, "No, that's the Darkman stuff."
This is the stuff we were kind of, if you're me, you're kind of hoping is forefronted in the Marvel universe.
Yes,
there are a number of really great Sam Raimi scene transitions throughout. Like there's the shot where we start with Julie looking up at the burning laboratory, and then the background around her dissolves, and then
into the funeral,
very subtly her wardrobe changes, but it feels as if that there is no corresponding dissolve over her face. It's like she's already in her mourning state here, and the rest of the world changes around her.
Yeah,
that's just that really good Sam Raimi shit.
Yeah, just the economy of filmmaking in this movie. And I think it's like about 90 minutes. The economy of filmmaking in this movie is immaculate. I mean, the story is kind of lean and in some ways like a little bit soap opera, but what you get out of that is a movie where there's always something happening.
Yes. It moves very quickly. And speaking of which, I know we haven't gotten into the nitty gritty of the plot details, but because we want to get to your pitch as soon as possible, because I really want to hear what you have done with this for the Dark Universe, can one or both of you tell me what happens at the end of this? I know the the line he has, I'm learning to live with a lot of things, that cracked through. I did not sleep through that. Like, I remember that exactly because I was like, fuck, that's so good.
I'm not like in love with the helicopter chase. I don't think that totally works. I think the daylight helicopter chase feels, I think a little bit too 1990, I guess. But the final action sequence of the film set in the high, I must say rafters, so that's not right.
Yeah, the kind of the girders, the scaffolding, the sort of like unfinished skyscraper. And we should say that's like kind of the bad guy's whole deal, is that the real bad guy, the man behind the gangster, is is sort of like Julie's kind of boss or something, and comforted her when, you know, they sort of dated when Liam Neeson was supposed to be dead. And he's not a Trump-like figure, but he is evoking that sort of 80s and 90s real estate empire as a looming specter in society, like as like the same way, and you know, we'll get to it in my pitch, but the same way that has been replaced by like a new kind of billionaire that we're all afraid is going to destroy society.
But there's this wonderful detail about how, you know, he inherited his family's real estate empire and construction empire, and when he was young, he learned to walk on the steel girders and balance up there, and he's completely at home up there, and he's like dancing like a you know, in almost like, it makes me think of Nicholson's Joker in the church, right? He's just so completely at home and having a great time in this very precarious situation, dancing and shooting bolts from a rivet gun at Darkman. And
I'm remembering this now. I had forgotten this.
It is so much fun.
We should have given him a cool name like Girder Man, Rivet Man.
Yeah, he's Louis Strack Jr. And it's at some point they show documents that say Strack Industries, which I think is very funny because it's so close. So close.
But Strack has Julie hostage or whatever.
I really hope that in your remake, you have decided to cast Robert Downey Jr. as Strack.
We haven't used RDJ yet.
No kidding. I don't know. He seems kind of busy. Also, I'm not sure I could afford him.
We're gonna pay him $81 million to play Strack.
But yeah, as you alluded to, Dalton, there's that great moment where Darkman, after doing various daring do, has got he's holding Strack by the ankle over the gaping maw of this unfinished building, and Strack is doing the classic "you won't kill me because you're the good guy" thing.
You want to hurt a birthday boy, would you?
Yes.
I'm just a little guy.
And I am very impressed with Darkman's ability to hold this probably 140-pound man by the ankle while standing perfectly straight with his arm perfectly out on a 4-inch balance beam of a girder. Like we said, he's super strong. He doesn't feel pain, and his arms don't get tired.
And he's Liam Neeson. I fully believe Liam Neeson could hold me upside down by my ankle. When I just look at him, of course he could do that.
He's got a particular set of skills.
It's a very comic book image, right? We believe it if we see Batman doing it, right? So, and so as you know, there's that great thing where he's like, "See, you won't kill me. You couldn't live with it." And yeah, that absolutely killer line. I've been learning to live with a lot of things. Drops him to his death. Julie finally sees his face, and she still loves him, but he feels he's too dangerous. He needs to be alone, and so he prints out a bunch of masks, runs off into the crowd. Julie can't find him. We get our last glimpse of him, and he is played for one shot by Bruce Campbell, and he disappears in the crowd and says, "Call me Darkman," and we do.
Yeah,
and lives are changed.
And we do. Yes. Man, this really should have been a better franchise. What happened with 2? Does anyone know the story? I assume Raimi didn't come back.
No, they're not Raimi films. They're both direct to video. I don't really know how they came to be what they are. Certainly the end of, and you know, I've always kind of felt this way just by being a big Raimi fan, big Bruce Campbell fan, and following their careers and the way that Raimi ends up producing a lot of Saturday afternoon television, much of it starring Bruce Campbell, that it feels more to me like they are setting up a Darkman TV show starring Bruce Campbell than a Darkman 2.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Because that's, you know, I mean, that's the level of fame that I think Bruce Campbell would have been at that time. Unless this movie was incredibly successful and it was just a big swing and it was like, finally in the next one I can give my buddy, you know, the leading role. But as for what actually happened, I do not know. I'm very in love with this film.
God, that would have been so good.
There was a pilot that was produced for a Darkman TV series starring Christopher Bowen, a British actor, in the leading role. And of course, you couldn't have anybody but Larry Drake play Robert.
Because if there's anything Durant is going to do, it's return.
But they made some changes. They kill off Julie immediately, I guess, so he can pursue a new love interest throughout the series. and more or less is a retread of the original, but with like it's sort of the idea that he's going to have this relationship with his police officer, so it can kind of be your basic crime a week procedural.
Yeah.
It was made for Fox, produced by Universal Television, and had never aired. I don't know if it's out there somewhere for people to check out.
I'm going to search.
When we were talking about how careful they are with the construction of the headquarters, I think Darkman is such an interesting movie to watch now that we live at the nexus of movies and films sort of being debatably interchangeable. Because I think that this premise now feels like a television show. And the fact that it is a movie, I think, is a real gift. But when you go through all the trouble of like, oh, he's the man of 1,000 faces. Every week he solves a different crime by impersonating, a guest star. Like, it does kind of be like, Victor Frankenstein meets Columbo, right? Potentially. That Darkman would just like keep going after these kind of big career criminals by impersonating them. And you'd get to see him walk through all of these worlds like Alias or iZombie or Quantum Leap or something like that. It's a great TV show premise, which is why I'm so grateful that it's actually one of my favorite movies instead of a low-budget television program.
Now, on that note, Daniel, you gotta be honest with us. How many times have you pitched a Darkman comic series?
The answer is not zero. I have looked into Darkman in various capacities. I know that there's also some other writers and directors online who are very vocal fans. And look, it's going to happen. There's going to be more Darkman. I hope to be involved. I assume that this is the podcast that gets me over because, you guys control the Dark Universe, the most profitable franchise in the history of cinema.
Exactly.
So
that's right.
We'll talk to the Universal execs. We'll get this happening. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I think we should take a quick break, and then we should hear Daniel Kibblesmith's take on Darkman,
which could be a movie, but also could be a Peacock streaming series.
Sure. If you're listening, it could also be a Peacock streaming series. But this one's a movie. This one is a movie.
We'll be right back, folks.
In 2006, DC Comics attempted a publishing stunt like nothing comics had ever seen before.
1 year-long continuous story.
For 52 weekly issues.
By a writer's room of the hottest comic writers in the industry.
What they created was the most important comic book series of the 21st century. I'm Gita Jackson.
And I'm professional comic book expert Alex Jaffe.
And we're the hosts of 52 Pickup, a deep dive into 52, the comic book that took the conventions of television writing to comics and defined the way we think about superhero universes today.
We'll show you just how big the DC universe can be when you get Batman out of the way.
And the chain of dominoes that led to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson playing Black Adam in a major Hollywood movie.
Find 52 Pickup wherever you find your podcasts, and we'll go issue by issue into this starting point to our comic book obsessions and figure out why our brains are broken this way.
It's the greatest podcast you've never heard of.
Are you ready?
We are back.
We're back
on Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe with our guest, Daniel Kibblesmith, who is about to pitch us his reimagining of Sam Raimi's Darkman.
I'm realizing if we had thought ahead, just the fact that his name is Darkman, we should have immediately jumped to him being the cornerstone of the Dark Universe. Yeah. Go right from The Mummy 2017, launch, Aminette, Nick Morton, Tom Cruise, all that stuff, right into Darkman reboot. And then we get to Frankenstein and whoever else.
It's sort of how, like, Marvel Boy is not a major character in the Marvel universe.
That's true. We are kind of this is kind of our Captain Marvel film. We're at the end of phase 3. Mm-hmm. It's time we get the namesake character in here. Mm-hmm. So, Daniel, how do you want to start? Do you want to just dive into plot details? Do you have any casting or director choices you want to share? Anything like that?
The floor is yours, however you'd like to set the stage for us.
Sure. I had a director in mind that I have now completely forgotten. So I'll just say, who'd be great for this is the team behind Dungeons and Dragons, Underworld Thieves.
Yeah.
I think that like a nice kind of genre, tonal balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I know it's John Francis Daly. I can't remember the other
John Francis
guy's name.
Daly and Jonathan Goldstein. The exact same thing happened to me. But
Yeah.
Yes. Well, one of them should have been a famous child star. But I just think that those guys are so smart and talented, and I really love Game Night as well, which if people haven't seen, I can't recommend more highly as just like another kind of classic like Hollywood movie, the kind of stuff that people complain that they don't make anymore, but then don't go and see.
Yeah. I didn't even realize Game Night was the same team. I had no idea, but I love both of those movies.
So I'm gonna say, the Daly Goldstein team would be great directors. And in terms of casting, I see the very tall and dare I say Liam Neeson-esque Jacob Elordi.
Okay.
Now he is already in the Dark Universe.
Oh, okay.
I cast him as the angel Raphael in the Mummy Heaven's Gate.
Okay,
but
fair enough.
Let's not let that stop us now.
Let's stick with that for now. And if we think of other casting as we go, if we want to make it canon, if maybe we just make Darkman and Raphael the same character, or the MCU has used people twice.
I think that this might work. Hear me out, but I think this might actually fit in a really interesting and unexpected way. And then opposite Elordi, I would love to cast Servant and the First Omen's Nell Tiger Free if she hasn't been used yet.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
I think.
Let me.
Well, no, we have not used her yet. I'm thinking of her name because I did just see The First Omen. She's terrific, at least in that. I have not seen Servant.
Fantastic. Speaking of balancing humor and horror, she is a fantastic actress who is so funny, but also so good at being distraught and slowly unraveling.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe you might know her from Game of Thrones. She's one of Cersei and Jaime's kids. I think the blonde princess.
Okay.
Who, like so many people on that show, meets a tragic death.
What?
Yeah.
Something bad happens to her?
I know that, and we'll talk about this later on tonight, but we just added a bunch of movies to the queue that you have to watch, but you really do owe it to yourself to watch The First Omen. It's really good. It's one of the year's prettiest movies and so far my favorite horror movie of 2024.
I do need to see The First Omen.
I'm really looking forward to it as well. As big a servant head as we are at my house, it's crazy that I haven't gotten around to First Omen. But we also have a toddler, so I can't watch a lot of spooky stuff around the house.
I feel you on that.
Is Servant the M. Night Shyamalan one?
It is.
Yes.
And it's Shyamalan Summer, baby.
It's yeah. We have pivoted from Simeon Summer to Shyamalan Summer. It's trap season. Can't wait to see it.
That's right. I'm pretty hyped. So yeah, that's who I see. Elordi, Nell Tiger Free. I think the D&D directing team would be great, and there's another cast member coming who is in Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves.
Okay,
so that could perhaps be a reunion, but I could start anytime you guys are ready.
Oh yeah, lay it on us.
Let's get into it.
All right, I'm going to put off the title a little bit, but here's what I'll say: We open on plastic surgery. It's the real world, the world of the dark universe, the 2020s now. But there's tinges of science fiction to the procedure, the neon blue light that we associate with teeth whitening and gleaming razor-sharp silver instruments. Everything about this screams the dystopian cost of our own battle with mortality. We see a patient totally wrapped in white bandages in the manner of the Invisible Man, or dare I say, the original Darkman. But this is a fake out. The bandages come off, and it's Rob Lowe. He's red, he's raw, he's had fresh work done, he looks in the mirror, satisfied. A doctor says that once it heals over, he'll look 10 years younger, but that's the problem with time. He's always facing down another 10 years, and youth is so wasted on the young. Cut to a college campus and a classic forest green Jaguar driven by Jacob Elordi. He steps out, tall, strong, Kennedy-esque, clearly the big man on campus. His arrival and walk across the college gives us a tour of the various subcultures that make up the college's texture. We see the football jocks, the goth kids, the TikTok perfect sorority girls, and the theater kids. holding auditions for what else but Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom of the Opera.
Perfect.
Passing the hot sorority girls, they tease Jacob, who is an obvious catch, asking, what does he see in this girlfriend that he's on his way to meet? She's weird. She's always hungover or something, always hiding behind those dark glasses. But he tells them, with him, she's a different person. We cut to the POV of a microscope where Nell Tiger Free sits in a darkened science lab. She is the improbably named Peyton Westlake, working her way towards her doctorate. That's right. I submit for the approval of the Dark Universe, Dark Girl.
It's woke.
It's very
woke.
It's very on brand for us. We have made the doctor who creates Frankenstein's monster a woman. We have a wolf woman. We're for
Dark
it.
girl.
Dark
Yeah,
girl.
you guys are ahead of the curve.
That's not terribly PC. Have you considered dark woman or dark person?
I thought about it, but I think Dark Girl is so
Dark
funny.
girl. Yeah.
Yes, dark girl.
Unfortunately, Dark Boy is even funnier, but when a boy goes dark, they usually, bring a gun to the mall or something. So
Yeah.
Dark Girl, I think, is the sweet spot.
Yes.
So the fluorescent lights flick on, and the cells under her microscope deteriorate instantly. And Peyton herself cringes at the light, and she immediately, reflexively puts on a pair of dark glasses. In the doorway is Jacob Elordi, playing the Frances McDormand role, who will also call Jules.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a stretch, but I do love that in the original Darkman, Peyton and Julie are both arguably gender-neutral names.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we learned that Peyton was in a fire when she was younger, which left some visible scarring on her arms and smoke damage, which has given her eyes an extreme photosensitivity. In other words, she's only comfortable in the dark.
Mm.
And Jules has just blown her latest experiment by surprising her. Peyton is also a science prodigy who is very close to generating 3D printed universal artificial skin. Unfortunately, it shares a version of her own weakness. It can only exist under direct light for 99 minutes. Jules apologizes, consoles her. It's clear that they're very much in love and that opposites have attracted between this nerdy outcast and this golden boy, holding each other in the dark. But it is not to last. The two are interrupted by Rob Lowe, playing the Dean of Sciences, Robert G. Durant.
Okay, so he's not playing Rob Lowe. I did think for a bit at the beginning that it was just Rob Lowe playing himself getting plastic surgery.
No, I mean, Rob Lowe, I think, is an actor who, I picked him for the Larry Drake. Is that the Robert G. Durant's real name? I picked him for the Larry Drake role because for people who are not, 40 going on 60, Larry Drake was on LA Law, and he was kind of like a quirky television character actor who then became the heavy in this kind of low-ish budget mainstream superhero horror movie. He was a very recognizable face to audiences, but not necessarily like a big movie star or anything like that. So I was looking for somebody who kind of occupied a similar space for my generation. And I think most younger people know Rob Lowe primarily from Parks and Rec at this point, but also has comedic chops and a public relationship with the concept of plastic surgery. True. And is also potentially very menacing.
Mm-hmm.
I, of course, know him from the Stan TV miniseries from that was kind of contemporary with Darkman.
Yeah, very much. Man, we were eating in the 90s genre, kids, with those big double VHSs. We were.
Yes.
Oh, God.
It was the world was our oyster. Our Robert G. Durant is the Dean of Sciences. And he interrupts to tell Peyton that her work is of great interest to Silicon Valley wonderkind Louis Strack. And I see this Louis Strack as sort of a Peter Thiel meets Mark Zuckerberg, played by the extremely likable, extremely trustworthy Justice Smith.
Oh,
I
wow.
cannot imagine doing anything evil. He is such a sweetheart.
No, we like Justice Smith a lot.
And of course, especially following I Saw the TV Glow,
everybody's rooting for this guy. He's the first good billionaire. He believes that their work could change the world. And Robert Durant is asking Peyton to share all of her research with the private sector. In reality, Strack and Durant have partnered up looking for sort of a shared goal, a kind of immortality. synthetic replacement faces that can serve as essentially a cure for aging. And Durant, no longer having his own youth, fetishizes the youth of all of these people around him. The young billionaire, the brilliant scientist, the golden boy on campus. And he's willing to give Strack anything if it stops his own aging, including stealing Peyton's research and blowing up the lab.
Amazing.
Durant has hired goons from the student population that we've seen already. There's a football player, a goth, even one of the sorority girls. This is our nod to the diversity of the bad guys in the original film.
What if the Breakfast Club was a gang? Yeah.
100%. That is exactly what we're going for. So, when they see the lights go off in the lab, they assume it's empty, not realizing that Peyton works in the dark. But they find not Peyton, but Jules. This wasn't supposed to happen. They have no choice but to hurriedly steal all the computers and notes, tie Jules to a chair, and fake an accidental explosion. Peyton, running late, arrives just in time to see Jules obliterated in the explosion, blowing her Wile E. Coyote style backwards, unconscious, badly burned for the second time in her life, and presumed dead. The world stops spinning on campus with the death of Jules. But no one really knows what to say about Peyton. She was an enigma to them. She could have been anyone or no one. She's Tom Sawyer at her own funeral, and she realizes that all this time she's existed to them as little more than a shadow. She is Dark Girl, and nobody knows that she's still alive. So, wrapped in bandages and slowly losing her mind with rage and a desire for vengeance, what follows is half murder mystery, half revenge slasher, as she rebuilds her laboratory among the ruins and steals the faces and identities of her classmates so she can infiltrate every strata and subculture of college life. Athletes, goths, sorority girls, and yes, the theater kids, culminating in a catwalk fight above a production of Phantom of the Opera that invokes the scaffolding showdown of the original Darkman and reveals to this university that they have a phantom of their own. Peyton will learn the truth about Dean Durant, his shady dealings with the film's true villain, Louis Strack. She'll kill Durant, expose Strack, and tragically, maniacally blow herself up one more time, resulting in her own death. Or will she? Because this time the body she leaves behind starts dissolving in exactly 99 minutes. She's gone once more, out into the dark universe, to dispense justice and vengeance wherever shadows are cast. Everyone goes to college hoping to find themselves or reinvent themselves. This is the story of a young woman who reinvents herself into others so she can find her own killer. Who is she? Call her Dark Girl.
All right. Yes.
Clap, 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 clap,
Clap,
clap,
clap,
clap,
clap, clap. We'll buy it.
Yeah, absolutely terrific.
Yes, there's so much potential to tie this into the larger Dark universe. Of course, Dark Girl, Darkman, a perfect member for our Dark Legion in general.
Fills a role. I mean, we sort of have our sort of sneaking mission figure in Dr. Griffin, the Invisible Man, but this is different. Right? Yes. That's not just not being seen. This is like getting to do the real spycraft of infiltration. Fills that
Full
Mission Impossible
impersonation.
bent. Yes. But I also love it's a very modern sort of device for is what do people lock things with now? Their faces, right? So it sort of feels like it is a particularly good method of infiltration for now because you're not just fooling other people, you're also fooling the technology that we all take for granted as infallible. I think that's very neat.
There's a lot of talk now about like, you know, all the AI apps, you know, really just capturing people's pictures of people's faces and things like that, that the way she gets the data to make the masks is by tapping into, you know, like maybe there's like a popular app on campus that people are using or something, but she's like, she gathers the face data that everyone is willingly giving their phones and then uses that to make the mask,
if you will.
Yes. I mean, we can tap in a little bit to the fear around the idea of deepfakes, right? Where we have this technology out there where we have all voluntarily provided all the information required for someone with enough processing power to make it appear as if we've done anything, right? But most of the time, it's imperfect, right? That's why we haven't fallen into complete total chaos as a society. This is not going to have any of those telltale signs. It's going to be sort of foolproof.
this is very horror movie too, because in a world with a generation of kids who have learned not to trust photos and videos because those can be doctored, what's safe? A face-to-face conversation.
Yes.
And now we have a crazy person on a quest for vengeance who has removed that safety, and now you cannot trust your own friends.
Yeah, she's a living deep fake, essentially.
Love it.
And then maybe this is getting too much into like what would be a possible sequel territory, but you were talking about how
let's get rich.
You were talking about how we kind of already have an espionage person, which is Jack Griffin. Dark Girl is kind of like the dark mirror of Jack Griffin in that she is someone who is sort of functionally invisible, right? But not by having her skin literally be transparent, but by being able to transform into anybody. But she's crazy. Jack is like our nice guy. He is our most normie. He's an old man who likes playing jazz standards on the piano. This is a young woman who is also, she's kind of Adelaide Van Helsing, which Daniel probably know. Our Van Helsing is like a vigilante, like psychotic vigilante who will like stop at nothing to kill monsters, even if it means killing people in her path.
She has taken the idea of fighting monsters to a sort of like using like sort of terrorist tactics.
Yes.
Like she's
She's
scorched earth, right? Mm-hmm. So I do like the idea that there's definitely story potential with those two characters meeting, because for one thing, we also have established that Jack has this sort of parental instinct as well, right? Mm-hmm. He would be protective of this person who he sees some of himself in, and he would want to try and steer her in the right direction. She doesn't want to be steered by somebody, right? This is someone who feels alienated and who is out for revenge. And even once she gets that revenge, she's not going to be fulfilled, right? Because what's her life now? She doesn't have one, right?
And what else have we tied Jack Griffin to? The Phantom of the Opera.
Yes, we have.
And so I'm not saying this would be a good movie idea, but I have to say it because it's in my head. And I'm hoping everyone strikes me down. But you know how in Ant-Man, there's a really unnecessary second act set piece where he meets the Falcon for kind of no reason. Have you seen the original Ant-Man?
Look, the MCU is maybe my favorite thing ever created, and I still don't remember this part.
In Ant-Man, he has to rob Avengers Campus in the second act.
And so he has like a 5-minute chase sequence.
Oh, that's
against
right.
The Falcon
Yes.
That they both agree never to speak of again.
Yes, and then that's how the Falcon knows to recruit him in Civil War.
Yeah,
That's right. But I know a little guy.
You don't remember it. There could be a second act set piece where in this Phantom of the Opera rehearsal, Jack Griffin is there. For some reason, he just loves the theater. He's, maybe he's, they called him in to coach. I don't know. But there's like a sort of back and forth between Dark Girl and the Invisible Man where he tries to impart her with like a lesson at the end that she doesn't take to heart. I think that would be a bad movie, but
But you know what? If Jack Griffin hears about, there's cutting edge research in synthetic skin, I could wear this suit, and then I could be a visible person again, outwardly.
I mean, look, this is so clearly an opportunity for Dark Girl versus the Invisible Man. Mm-hmm. But that's not the movie we're here to pitch.
We're here to talk about your pitch, and I honestly don't have a lot of notes. It's just like a silly, simple suggestion, which is that I'd rather not double cast Jacob Elordi. How do you feel about Josh O'Connor for Jules?
Well, so here's another fun thing about this pitch is that in a true act of self-sabotage, I decided to set it at a college, which means I would need to know the names of young actors, which I firmly do not.
Yeah, so, we had a problem. I realized Josh O'Connor is 34 years old. So Josh O'Connor, he's in Challengers. He's the one who's not Mike Feist. I always think of him as like
I know exactly who this is.
Hot Connor O'Malley is what I call him.
Well, first of all, regular Connor O'Malley is already a smoke show.
And second, no disrespect to Connor O'Malley. Connor O'Malley, we'd love to have you on the program.
And no disrespect to A.D. Bryant either. Your husband is beautiful.
He's a loud hunk.
Yes.
And I know he'd be great. He'd be great. He could be like, if he skews a little older, he could be kind of grad studenty, like all of this could be grad students.
Hell, he could be her professor.
Ooh.
Wanted to go the problematic
If we
route.
were going to go the route that if this movie was made in the 1940s, then sure.
Or the 1990s.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Really any era except now.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm in that spot that we often find ourselves in on the show, just like, damn, I would like to see that film. You came in very well prepared, Daniel. We're really very pleased. It's also clear that you've done this before with actual stakes. So,
It's true.
I think what
not
we should...
on Darkman, but if anybody's listening, it's obviously a franchise that I have a lot of passion for.
Mm-hmm.
There is the overlap, which I know you've only just listened to a couple of the shows. We do have a Phantom of the Opera episode.
Mm-hmm. If you liked Invisible Man, which I know you do, I would encourage you to check out our Phantom of the Opera episode.
But
Most
the good
definitely.
news is that our Phantom of the Opera actually canonizes that Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera exists in the Dark Universe. So don't worry.
Magnificent.
That does still
I'm so
exist.
glad. I'm
But
so
it does
glad.
it does make our third acts overlap a little bit because our Phantom of the Opera does end with a production of Phantom of the Opera exploding.
Got it.
But I think there's room for both. I think it would be interesting if this college comments on it, like maybe the Phantom of the Opera is experiencing a resurgence in popularity because of the drama
highly
that happened
popularized disaster.
It's like
Yes.
saying Macbeth in a theater. It's bad luck, and the Phantom of the Opera productions keep exploding.
Well, and it could
There's
be
an
like
epidemic of exploding Phantom of the Opera.
Spinal Tap drummer syndrome of Broadway.
No, I actually do like that idea. Like when Dark Girl starts appearing, everyone could think it's Claudia, because if we're setting this during our phase 3, people know about what happened at the Phantom. I'm getting into details you don't need to know about, but our fans will know about them.
No, this is the entire point. We're doing this.
That the college kids know about the Phantom of the Phantom, and think, oh my God, she's somehow come back. And now she must just hate this musical. Why is she at our college campus? And then it turns out, it's Dark Girl. But there's like a precedent for these kids believing that there is a phantom.
Right, because this is a world new world of gods and monsters, right?
Yeah.
Supernatural things are happening. People know, if this is phase 3, people know that there's demons and a hell, right? So
maybe they even call in Jack Griffin. Like the college calls him in to be like, hey, we need you to check this out.
It would be really
this
tragic.
Is the kind of thing that you do.
Yeah.
They call Carol, but of course she's not available. So Jack goes in her place.
Yes, she has died.
So again, this is
so dense.
Yes. I mean, we're hoping that a lot of people are listening to the show for the first time today to hear Daniel's pitch. Welcome, everyone. Hopefully, us talking about all these characters that we've established over the course of 28 films, plus all of our guest pitches, is intriguing you to check out the show from the beginning. If not, don't worry. Just
we're about to go into our big crossover. We're about to go into our Infinity War.
We are about to do our Infinity War. That's true.
Yeah, this is a jumping on point. I am declaring this to be a jumping on point.
Thank you.
There's
Please
a big
tell
number
everyone.
1 in the left hand corner of the cover.
Yeah, I mean, my only feeling here is, like, obviously you and I are piling on stuff from our universe that would maybe not best serve the film. But would serve our larger franchise. Yeah, a symptom of a huge problem with movies now.
We've got Feige brain. We have terminal Feige brain.
My regret now is like, okay, so if we were to receive this pitch having produced these 28 other films, my thing would be like, dang, I wish we'd gotten yours first, because I think that these ideas all work really well on the scale that you've presented, and so having to operate as sort of reprisals of things that we've sort of done in things like Invisible Man or Phantom of the Phantom, but on a smaller scale, I think actually does a disservice to Dark Girl. So I think that if we were to take another sort of smoothing it into our universe pass, I would want to try and differentiate it further rather than play all these callbacks, so that it can definitely serve as its own thing.
So we shouldn't set it at the same college as Cat People?
I mean, that would make Cat People a little bit more relevant to our universe instead of this being this little island.
I haven't heard every episode, as you guys know, but I was thinking, like, okay, they might need like a Spider-Man Homecoming, where it's a bit of like kind of a tonal reset, like smaller scale, that she's friendly neighborhood Dark Girl, and she's not necessarily going against the world beaters.
Yeah, I like her as like sort of a detective. She's kind of like almost like a John Constantine or like,
Sure.
you know, who does
Kind
interact
of
with like,
mission oriented.
yeah. And like will sometimes make an appearance with the Justice League or whatever, but is not often operating on like Superman level.
Right. She's not a joiner. That's for sure. Right.
Yeah.
No.
But it is the kind of thing where like, with your permission, Daniel, we would like to leave the door open for Dark Girl to play a role in future stories in the Dark Universe canon.
Of course, I would be honored. That's the joy of participating in a larger cinematic universe.
And I want to make it very clear for anyone listening to this in the future that we would in no way interfere with efforts to produce this as an actual thing in the future. If Daniel Kibblesmith gets in a room with people who can actually make the movie, please don't let us or this stop you. We want to see it.
That while this is real,
yes,
it is also perhaps in a different way, just for fun.
Yes. One thing that you probably have not, we have kind of dropped the kayfabe on the show because we were running through
fantastic.
we were running when we ran right through the writer's strike, and we didn't want there to be any confusion that we were continuing to conceive and break down stories for Universal
That's
Pictures
very respectful
while the
of you.
union was on strike.
Yeah, I think that was a good move.
Yes.
Now, I do think there is an opportunity here also. Movie's a hit, obviously. It's Dark Universe. People are going to come see it because it's the Dark Universe.
Yeah, people saw Kill Your Darlings.
People are going to be in the seats, and then we do what the original Darkman couldn't. Streaming Peacock series of Dark Girl on campus, sort of like Buffy meets Darkman, of like Monster of the Week, Mystery of the Week episodes, you know,
You're
of
speaking
her
my language,
impersonating
man.
people.
Oh.
We get Bruce Campbell in there as a college professor. He's like their he becomes her Giles.
1000%.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, we let this be. I mean, streaming series, Dark Universe streaming series. We have Joseph Fink's Teen Wolf. We have its spin-offs, Teen Mummy. And who else? Count Bufula.
We
Lady
didn't give
Bufula
Bufula her own show yet. Listen, if Bufula leaves Teen Wolf is dead.
Yeah, but she might have a side
need
thing.
her.
But definitely Teen Wolf and Teen Mummy. We have Branson Reese's David and Davidson.
Annual specials.
Yeah, the annual specials. And now we have Dark Girl as a sort of college campus Buffy mystery. Again, Columbo. It's Columbo meets Buffy.
Right. We want it to be in that new sort of streaming episodic model where it's like a 6-episode season, but and they're all individuals, but they have like killer guest stars.
Oh, like Poker Face.
Yeah, like exactly.
Great comp.
That's the vibe that we're going for.
I love it.
In the ending, do we keep the "I'm learning to live with a lot of things" line? I feel like that's iconic enough.
If I could, I would use "I'm learning to live with a lot of things." I would use the dancing with the tin funnel on my head. Look at the freak, $5. Look at the freak, $5.
So good. God, I love that scene.
Can I swear on the podcast?
Absolutely.
Can I say, take the fucking elephant.
Yes.
But most importantly, when we meet Peyton in Act 1, I would have her say, "What is it about the dark? What mysteries does it hold?"
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm getting all of these verbatim, but it is in the way that only the 90s can provide a very quotable film.
Very quotable. That does bring me to a question, which is, how much do you think how do you think the visual language of this movie would be approached? Because clearly this is it has Raimi's signature visual style, and a big part of it is his visual style and how he does these transitions and these in-camera, like psychedelic freak out moments and stuff. Would you envision this paying tribute to that in some way, or would you want to be like, it's sort of like the new Suspiria that they made in 2018. It's like, that does not attempt to do the Argento blue and red lighting, like it's very much, it keeps some of the plot details, but at no point is it doing an Argento impression. Would you want this to be doing a Raimi impression, or just kind of following a similar story?
Let's stick with the MCU parallel and say that, like, Raimi is already sort of in there, and there's a house style that is also in that movie. And, it kind of depends on who's driving at any time. I think that a little bit of homage is kind of inevitable.
Yeah.
But I would be very happy to not see it come off as like Raimi light, and let our hypothetical directing team find their own visual language for it, while still obviously hitting all of these kind of textured touchstones and things, the metal, the fire, the bandages. I think that the Darkman is a very textured movie and very comic booky movie, and I think that even those things seen through somebody else's lens, it's going to come through. That's just what that stuff looks like.
I mean, the original Darkman is also paying tribute to kind of your 1989 Batman, but also just like pulp serials and things like that. And so in the way that Darkman references noir and superhero comics and things like that, this can reference Raimi in the same way, while ideally bringing its own unique visual style to it. And I think your directing team would be able to do that. The Dungeons and Dragons is a very colorful visual movie,
Absolutely. And a lot of movement in it that is at times Raimi-esque. I mean, like following the shape-changing druid, through the castle as she escapes has a bit of a sort of a Raimi like flying camera quality to it. That was an on-the-fly decision, but I think that they would nail this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of that scene in Dungeons and Dragons where like they have that portal that like brings them into the castle from the like moving carriage or whatever, and they did that all in camera. Like they built a set like that
no kidding. It's amazing.
Like,
it's
I've seen
really
a video
impressive.
of that on Twitter where like they literally built a set that they could move the camera through that doorway and be in a new place in some really trippy practical ways. And I feel like that's the kind of stuff we could just let them loose on in this. And like if we could nail some similar things that like look like CGI transitions but actually practical and camera stuff, that's like in the Raimi spirit, without necessarily needing to make it feel like a Raimiism.
How would you do like an optical transition now, using what you have but not relying fully on letting the computer do it for you?
Yeah.
I think that sounds like a great challenge to give to some talented directors who I fully believe will do this in real life.
Yes,
all right,
absolutely. It's going to happen.
Cut the check. Let's go.
Daniel, this was great. I think Dylan and I are excited about having Dark Girl in the Dark Universe, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
As am I. Thank you, guys.
We're very happy to have heard this pitch. We are, of course, excited to make it canon.
I'm hoping that our Discord goes wild with Peyton and Jack fanfic. I want to read, if you're listening to this and you're in the Discord, I want to read Jack being like trying to be like father figure to Peyton, and Peyton being like, fuck you, old man, I'm going insane off of she doesn't have the painkiller juice, right? We didn't give her the painkiller juice from Darkman.
No, I didn't. I think that if I could make a criticism of Darkman, a movie that I do love very much, it is that, to borrow another phrase from my wife, it's too many things. Yeah. When you're building a superhero from scratch, it's very exciting to be like, oh, he's strong, and also he doesn't feel pain, and also he makes fake skin. I just went with fake skin, and her grief is what's, her grief and her circumstances are what is making her mind deteriorate. She doesn't have the emotional overload thing that Liam Neeson, Jenny Agutter doesn't stab her with a pin in front of a bunch of medical students.
She's never rotating on a big wheel.
No, that she definitely is.
Yeah,
I don't know how to get it in there, but she definitely...
Well,
She's
if we
gonna be
can't
on the
find a
big
time
metal
in the movie,
wheel.
then we'll dedicate a whole episode to the big wheel of the spinoff TV show.
Unfortunately, I just had another galaxy brain idea that I'm embarrassed by, but I have to say it out loud or I'll go crazy.
Why is the show always running long? I have no idea how this
I know,
happened.
I'm sorry. But look, we took a break. The timer's wrong. This is my last thought. We talked about setting this. The college is doing Phantom of the Opera. Now, Daniel, you may not know this. In our Dark Universe, we made a sequel to our Phantom of the Opera called Love Never Dies, which is
Sure,
named
that makes
after
sense.
the actual sequel to the Phantom of the Opera that Andrew Lloyd Webber wrote. That musical takes place at Coney Island and has a big freak show vibe.
Oh no!
A part of Darkman is the carnival and the freak show. What if instead of this college, the college doesn't put on Phantom of the Opera, because Phantom of the Opera is now like saying Macbeth. Like it's a bad luck musical. So the college is putting on Love Never Dies instead, which means the set is a big carnival, and we can do all of our carnival tribute stuff on the set in the theater program.
You guys. Oh,
And
this is so intuitive.
At some point, our Durant character thinks he's caught Dark Girl and straps her to the knife throwing wheel and spins her around and does a little dance around and is throwing knives. And that's how we get her on the wheel. And we get the carnival set piece, and it's a tie into Love Never Dies, and that's how you do a cinematic universe.
Oh.
My name is Dalton Deshane, and this has been Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe?
Oh,
I'm punching the air. The podcast listeners need to know I'm punching the air.
Oh, I have terminal Feige brain. It's
well, I
gonna
mean,
kill
the
me.
thing is, like, most people don't know that A, Love Never Dies exists, or B, it takes place at Coney Island. But at this point in our release calendar, we will have familiarized our audience
That's
to
right.
those things, because they go and they see the play at the beginning of the Love Never Dies movie. Okay, all right. I have not been super into all of the little universe integration things you've thrown out there, Dalton. This one I like. This one I love 100%.
Great.
Okay, with that, we are going to let our guest go. Thank you, Daniel Kibblesmith, so much for joining us. This has been a treat.
Thank you for having me. This was a blast.
Yeah, this was wonderful. An honor to have you on. I've been a fan of your comic writing for a long time, so this is really great. I'm so happy we can add Dark Girl. We're gonna greenlight it. I don't know if we gave it the official green light. This is canon. It is canon in the Dark Universe. I wish it was a little earlier in Phase 3, so maybe we could integrate it somewhere. But we might find a spot.
Maybe. Who knows?
That's the beauty. It goes on forever.
Daniel, do you have, and you want to tell folks who don't already know you where they can find you and what you've got, what you're working on lately?
Oh, sure. I'm on Twitter at Kibblesmith still, for some reason. I'm on Instagram at Daniel.Kibblesmith. I have worked on things that have not been announced or distributed, so I would say whenever you are listening to this, even if it is many years after the release date, just Google me. Just see what's up.
Yeah, you'll find plenty of stuff. It was great having you on. I'm sure our fans are going to love this edition. They always love when we add a chaotic monster lady. It's
ka-ching.
It's like catnip to them. So
yeah, welcome home, Dark Girl.
absolutely.
All right.
Great.
We're going to release Daniel Kibblesmith, and then we have a little bit of podcast business to take care of with all of y'all before we release you back into the ether. So, Daniel Kibblesmith, thank you so much. You may see yourself out, sir.
All right, that was Daniel Kibblesmith.
What a treat. What a terrific pitch. What a swell guy. Before we let you all go and most probably put on the next episode of our podcast.
We say let you go like you can't just hit the stop button at any time and abandon us.
They can't because of that curse.
Yes,
We're not
that's
supposed
right.
to talk about the curse
because
on the air.
of the amulet.
We'll cut that out. We had a couple of patrons in the Discord this very day that we're recording, as a matter of fact, basically ask us very generously if there were ways to support the podcast monetarily a little bit more.
I swear this is real. This actually happened. Someone asked if they could pay us more money.
And technically the answer is no. This podcast is for free and we don't profit from it. However,
That's right.
if you want to support our artistic pursuits in general, the work that Dalton and I do, we do have that Patreon, which we talk about on every episode of the show, where you can get access to a special bonus monthly podcast for $5 a month. Join a lovely Discord community of other creatives who like to workshop and talk about this podcast and just genuinely be very cool and funny and kind to each other.
And do movie nights and things like that.
We've been
script readings.
We've been doing some script readings, not just of things that people bring in to write, but once a month I've been organizing a reading of some screenplay of note that we want to do. We just recently did Scream. It was fantastic. We had a great time. But Because of their suggestions, we have added a few new tiers to the Patreon.
Because up until now, you could only give us $5 a month. And I know the reason most of you haven't subscribed is because you're like, $5 is just too low. I want to support these two yahoos, but I wouldn't do it for that low.
So if you want to invest more dollars in Dalton and in myself and all the things that we do, you can sign up for any of the following tiers. In addition to the existing $5 a month tier, which has unchanged and still has a 7-day free trial, go to patreon.com/Dylan and Dalton to check that out. You can join as a producer, which is exactly the same rewards, but for $8. This is just the you feel like being nice to us tier, and you want to give us $3 extra a month.
And you get a special little color on Discord to show that you're better than the other ones.
You'll be bronze instead of red. Then above that, there's the executive producer level, $15 a month. Again, it's all the same except for you get a gold nameplate, but also you get a personal acknowledgement at the conclusion of our show, which we'll be doing at the end of this episode. We'll be naming all of our executive producers.
You are now an executive producer of all Dark Universe movies, and so we need to give you credit as mandated by the Producers Guild.
Mm-hmm. And then there is the studio executive level. This is the exciting one, folks. This is $25 a month. But to get the benefits of it, you only actually have to join it for a month. And then you
don't tell them that.
And then you can reduce it back down to whatever you like. What you get for the $25 a month level is you get to commission from us a movie that we will do a guest episode style pitch for in the bonus podcast. Not here, because once again, we cannot directly profit from this podcast.
So basically, you pick a movie. We will talk about it on the bonus pod, and Dylan and I will work out on the air what our pitch for a Dark Universe version would be. We're not scripting it.
Not a script. It would be a copyright-friendly process. It is about the process of writing it. It is not a replacement for any product that Universal or any other studio might look to sell in the future.
It's just a brainstorming session like we do on these guest episodes. You also get to pick one stipulation. So if you want to pick a movie, let's say you want to do the Rats of Nim, but you want Jekyll the Corgi from Love Never Dies to be in it.
We'll have to do that.
We have to do that.
You will have paid us $25 at least once.
Or you can just have a stipulation like everybody dies at the end, or just any sort of one sentence stipulation.
Yeah, give us a challenge, and we'll use that exercise to create entertainment for you and the rest of our patrons. If this is something that excites you, please go to patreon.com/Dylan and Dalton. Even if you're not interested in going to that $25 level for any length of time, everybody from the $5 level up gets that podcast and gets to enjoy the pitches that will be coming from those suggestions. We've already received a number of commissions from our lovely Discord community just today while this whole thing's been happening. And we have some really fun stuff coming up, which we will tell you about on future episodes. So, we hope that you're interested in at least seeing what the results of those are. I think it'll be a really fun show.
And in the meantime, we must credit the executive producers and studio executives that made Dark Girl possible.
Dark Girl has been brought to you by studio executives Amy Contreras, Andy from the Discord, Balthazar, Barris, Callie Castle, Gregory Milne, Joe, Cadel, Sunmat, Tom Webster, and executive producer Mar Bendlar. If you would like to join that list of executive producers and studio executives, get on over to that Patreon. We'd love to give you a nice special thanks.
That's going to wrap it up for this week. In 2 weeks, we will have, of course, our Phase 3 recap episode, where we are going to be recapping the events since The Mummy's Hand and including The Mummy's Hand, and we'll be presenting a full version of all the Dracula post-credit scenes put together so you can get a refresher on that whole saga all in one go. 2 weeks after that is our 50th episode spectacular, where we have a very special guest lined up. It hasn't been fully locked in yet, but I'm really excited about it. And if you as a listener are the exact kind of nerds that Dylan and I are, you will also be very excited about it. We've talked about getting this guest on the show before, and it's looking like it's going to happen. So stay tuned for episode 50.
Cross all your fingers and toes, folks.
And then 2 weeks after that, Dark Legion Death's Door, Part 1, We Hope to God. we hope to set. We are about to record our planning episode for that right after we wrap this up. So we are off to the races. Thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed Daniel's pitch for Dark Girl. And until next time, stay afraid of the dark universe.